Hey, everybody, coming at you with movie review number 6 of 2026 on my way to see 100 films this year. I went to see The Testament of Anne Lee, starring Amanda Seyfried, directed by Mona Fastvold. And those who've been following me for a few years on this, oh, by the way, we just gained a couple more followers on our way to that high expectation goal of 200. We can do this. Um, she was the writer of The Brutalist. And again, those who've been following me for a few years know how I feel about The Brutalist. So I'm here to say right now, Mona Fastvold, I love this film, and I think I can come to a truce in this cat or mouse game of The Brutalist in seeing this. This is a great film. It's so beautiful. The It feels right in line with Hamnet, I guess. Just maybe in the time and the scope and the imagery of England all the way to America. It's I can't explain it. It's just a beautiful, beautiful artistic film. So, would you go see this film? Should I go see this film? You might be asking me. I would say yes, with a question mark, for a couple reasons. I would say it depends on the kind of moviegoer that you are. If you're going for just a casual movie experience, probably not. But if you're somebody who wants to see, number one, a deeply artistic film filled with beautiful imagery, filled with beautiful songs, filled with really kind of deep, moving inspiration within the actors. Amanda Seyfried just knocks it out of the park as Anne Lee. Lewis Pullman as William Lee, great. Man, if that kid does not look like his dad, it's like, wow. So if you want to see an artistic film, yes. If you are a U.S. history teacher, someone who's very interested in U.S. history and very interested in the side stories of U.S. history that don't often discuss but are very, very important stories of U.S. history, especially Revolutionary era, Great Awakening. So, Jonathan Edwards, Burned Over District stuff, Second Great Awakening. This is a great film for that. And the Shakers you couldn't go wrong talking about the Shakers. They're such a really interesting American story. I'll go into that in just a second. If you are somebody who is currently caught up in debates on freedom of speech, freedom of religion, this is a movie for you as well. It does give a message for our current age and current debates into not only what is religion in our country, what are the foundations of religion in our country, but kind of the war of Christianity in our country. And so it's got a really pretty solid, profound message of that. So yes, if you like that. You like musicals? Yes. Not a conventional musical, but I think I'll explain that in a second too. For me, I love this film probably for a very personal, maybe a selfish reason. So I got to take my bias out of this, but I can't because I was so excited during this whole movie. There were moments where I was just overcome with joy. In 2013, I was given a fellowship to study the Shakers in Hancock Village and Water Vliet with a group of other educators for a couple weeks. And just the Easter eggy stuff that wasn't necessarily described, but I knew, like the shaker chairs and the shaker broom and the cloaks and the family style dining and the stomping out the devil in the meeting halls. And I was like, so excited. Yeah, people in the theater are probably annoyed by me. I'm like, oh, the chairs. Now, that being said, if you are unfamiliar with the Shakers, I hope you'll familiarize yourself with them. There might not be a lot of explanation for the uninitiated into the Shakers, I guess. So that might be a problem if you go see this movie as well. So actually, let me switch to some Shaker stuff. Oh, see? Switching out, putting myself in front of Anne Lee's grave at Water Vliet. There you go. Look at that. William Lee is buried there. Lucy's buried there. The Shaker culture. And it's such a wonderful job. So actually, it's kind of morbid. Let me switch. Much better. So this is Shaker Village. Hancock Village. Round barn over there. Nice. That was in the movie. You get excited. So, what I love about this movie, and I'm sure they could have done this years ago and filmed this, it is a great biopic and kind of an unusual biopic, right? I love the pacing. I love the story. I love how it brought it from childhood to adulthood to death of Ann Lee. And I feel like, yeah, they probably could have done this movie years ago, but what would have been lacking in production and other productions of this film was its heavy reliance on music. And as, again, someone who studied the Shakers, that was perfect. Some people might be taken out of this, like, oh, what's with all the music? But the Shakers were all about singing. They were all about expressing their faith in powerful ways, whether it was stomping or moving, stomping out the devil, they called it, right, in the meeting house, singing, singing, singing. Great composers like Issachar Bates, who helped bring Shakerism all the way here to Indiana and the Busco colony here in Indiana, right? So to incorporate music to really portray from the soul of the Shakers is one of the great things about this movie. I would say if you don't know anything about the Shakers, definitely have to go see this movie, or even before you go see this movie, just get kind of a general idea of who they were as people. People often get them confused with different religious sects, Quakers, Amish, so forth. So people are always surprised, like when we studied the Shakers, to go to a Shaker colony and see all the technology. Like, oh, they lived with technology. Yes, Shakers were always at the forefront of technology. They were always inventing. They were always curious. Their hands to work model of just constantly not being idle, finding something to do, led them to help us invent seed packets and flat brooms and shaker chairs that were able to be pushed under their tables, so you didn't have to clean off the table by moving chairs. You scoot the chair under the table and then clean the table. These cloaks that became very popular with like Grover Cleveland's wife, and then they picked up. Authors would come visit them. So Nathaniel Hawthorne and all these people went to study the Shakers because they're so interesting. When cars were created, they were at the forefront of buying the first car. When TVs were created, they bought televisions. The innovations and the inventions that they came up with to make life more efficient and work more efficient. You go study the Shakers, go to these museums in Massachusetts and New York, New Hampshire. You'll be blown away by the way they harnessed projects to do work. I love that in the movie. And again, if you're uninitiated, that might be the confusing part. When they go into the meeting house in two separate doors, men and women, that might be confusing. So there was a cohabitational lifestyle, right? Although celibate, which is their whole purpose, and people might study them for that reason, is they were the sexless religion. You wanted to be a Shaker, you'd made it by choice. You divorced basically your family bonds to become brothers and sisters. So your kids become your brothers and sisters, your husband, your wife become your brothers and sisters, and you live this kind of sexless dynamic. And to keep people from temptation, two staircases up to the same dormitory. Men slept on one side of the hall, women on the other. But to avoid temptation, even in the stairways, they had a male staircase and a female staircase, right? So it's just interesting. The work separation, the idea of dinner, coming together without temptation, of sitting down at a table family setting of four, identical to the next table setting of four, identical to the next table setting of four, and not speaking to one another through dinner. So you didn't have to ask to pass anything because you were there. Just this idea of being so present in your faith that you avoided all temptation of the flesh and of laziness and these things. It's just study them. It's really interesting. And like I said, maybe for the uninitiated coming to this movie, that stuff might be a bit jarring. So definitely read up on it, learn about it. It's interesting to really get into. I think it does a really good job looking at this idea we have of the foundations of Christianity and asking us, but what Christianity? There's so many different forms. And here is a group who fought other Christians for religious freedom, the right to exist passionately in their faith. And we're at the forefront of the abolition movement. We're at the forefront of women's rights. All these things, they didn't exist as a group of religious people who believed in the idea of religion under nation, but they believed in religion as the whole. And you see that in the film. It's such a great message for the current day. So beautiful. Everybody did a great job. Go see this movie for those reasons. Go study the Shakers.